Greetings and salutations, my friends. Welcome to episode 3 of our Russian Fishing 4 guide. Today, we've moved on a little bit. As you'll see, I've leveled up to level 9. I haven't bought any tackle. I haven't spent any skill points. We're going to sort of go through the skill points a little bit more, talk about what to level up first. But also, I've saved up some money and we're going to buy our first... The question I get asked more than anything else, and I see it a lot in streams and stuff, is what should I buy first? So we're going to go through that as well. Also talk a bit about the shops and how they work a little bit differently as well. So first off, I've got to show you a few fish that I've had in between. Obviously, I've just been using the telestick that we've had from the start. I've had some interesting times. We've had a couple of thunderstorms. It's been a few days after the previous video. I've lost about 3 line snaps, because the trouble with using a telestick is that it's a fixed line. So if you hook a big fish, which you will occasionally, and it pulls, and it pulls, and it pulls, and the little bar at the bottom goes into the red, there's nothing you can do about it. That's just one of the downfalls of using these little telesticks. And you can sort of try and chase it if it's not going out into the middle of the lake, but it's a bit of a pain in the bum. So you just have to deal with that. Okay, that's why you don't want to stick like a really amazing baits and big hooks on these little telesticks, because you're going to hook big fish. So let's have a look. I've got some catch to show you. So first off, let's see I've been fishing for a few hours this session. And let's have a look at me keep now. As you can see, been banging a few outlets. But nothing. I've got one really good fish. Like, there's some really nice fish here. 1.5 kilo crucian carp here, which is very nice. That's a good size. And a 1.5 kilo perch, which is a new PB on this account, which was very, very nice. Also some decent tench, but nothing spectacular. But I was just sort of whipping them out, really. Like, these are all good. If you get quite quickly you'll get used to what is a good size fish for the species. Anything over 1 kilo for a crucian or a perch is a decent fish. And they're the sort of stuff. Anything over sort of 0.5 kilo for a common roach, 0.5 kilo is just over £1. 1 kilo is 2.2 pounds for those that do pounds, which is me. A 53 gram rough. An 80 gram rough, in fact, here, which is actually not a bad size for a rough. Chinese sleepers, a 300 gram Chinese sleeper is a decent fish. So first thing we do, as we know, go to the cafe, see if we can sell anything. No, they want 3 pieces. That we didn't get any frogs, didn't get any bleak. They want 5 roach, I've got 3. This is just the way it's going. They want 5 perch, I've got 2. Didn't get any bream. I got a rough. Oh, they want 5 of them. Good. Because there's always a certain size that they're after. This one's, big. They're looking for big roach there. Chub. Don't think we've got any... I don't seem to remember catching a 3 kilo chub. Oh, that's unfortunate. But we've got a bunch of fish, so we'll just... we can sort by price just to sort of show you. As you can see, for like that perch there, 4.6, I'll take it all day long. Another 35 silver. We're up to... When it updates... Oh, it hasn't done it yet. Eventually, please don't say my internet's died again. Occasionally, you do get disconnected from the server, or there's a little bit of lag. I've not really noticed it when fishing, but occasionally when you're doing stuff in the shop. So don't just hit it once and be patient, right? 196 silver, right? That's a decent chunk. I've had to buy a few extra hooks because of being pulled off, so to speak. But let's talk about a couple of things. First off, skill system, which we sort of covered last episode. But as you see, I've only been float fishing. The only other thing I've bought is the Spade. You want to get that nice and early, which is over there in the workshop area. So it's in the store on the workshop. So you buy a Spade. It's only 38. It's quite expensive. 38 silver, but it's worth getting early because then you can start digging for worms, meaning you're paying for your own bait. So it just pays for itself, lads. Pays for itself, it does. So as you can see, I've been sort of doing the worming. I've got 8 points to spend. I haven't spent a single point. That goes to show. One other thing I want to show you before, it's not all about levels and stuff. This is what I love about this fishing game. You're playing World of Warcraft and you're level 4. You're not going to kill a big boss dude, right? You just can't. It's just impossible. Whereas with these fishing games, you can catch some decent fish. And as you can see, my friends, I caught a 1.9 kilo. Look at that fat bastard. A 1.9 kilo crucian carp. I also had another 1.8, I think it was, which is a trophy fish, and you get lots of money for those. Caught on pearl barley, because some kind gentleman sent me 15 pearl barley, and I managed to catch a crucian carp. But the 1.8 was on bread, I think. Caught a kilo common carp. We've not been really going, you know, our little telestick, that beginner stick, is useful for about 2 kilos. It gets a bit hairy if anything's over 2 kilos, or even a sort of bigger perch or pike, because they fight like bastards. So I've been quite happy. No big tench yet. This is not massively known for its tench, but we've made some money, and now we're going to buy the first rods. So here's your 3 main areas of expertise: float fishing, spin fishing, bottom fishing. Regardless of how you plan to play more, like you might be really into spin fishing, and that's what your main goal is. Obviously get a spin fishing rod as soon as you can, but I think for leveling up and making money, the way to always go is your first rod should be a feeder rod. The reason being is you can cast out your feeder rod, you can put a little bell on it, I'll show you all that in a minute, and then you can just put it to one side, and you don't have to even think about it, and you can just stand next to it and continue float fishing. So you're doubling up, whereas it's a lot harder. You can still do it. You can put the float rod in, put it down, and go spin fishing, but you've got to keep an eye on the float all times, or you could do 2 floats, but it's a bit tricky. So my suggestion to you guys would be for your first couple of rods should be both feeder rods, because you can have 3 rods maximum. So 2 feeders and then go float fishing, or 2 feeders and then go spinning. So you've always got something to do, but you're not having to juggle a massive thing about, you know, you can just drop them when you get a bite on one of the feeder rods and that sort of stuff. So let's spend some points. On my main account, by trade, most of my time spent fishing was carp and tench. So I kind of went into this bottom feeding route. I've got fishing with a feeder rod. I leveled up lots so it was more accurate and we had more control. And then carp, which I recently unlocked, all that sort of good stuff. So, you only have a certain amount of points to spend. So I'm going to go on this account. I'm going to end up having 3 accounts, aren't I? Yeah. I'm going to go with float fishing. I'm going to concentrate this account as... I'm going to do all sorts of fishing on it, but I'm going to put my points into float fishing. So this is reel. So the spinning reel, this is a really nice one, because the spinning reel, if I put a point into this, which will give us accuracy and casting distance, which is really nice, this will carry over to the spinning reel there. So you put a point in that, you get a point in both. It's double your money, lads. It's double your money. Right, so let's have a look. I also got the use of, I just unlocked, because I'm at 26%, luminous floats, which are little glow-in-the-dark floats. That just makes them easier to see at night. Doesn't attract the fish or anything. Because I plan eventually to not use the telescopic rod. That's just a newish thing. And then eventually I want to go... I'm not a massive fan of the Bolognese rod. They're like an in-between weird rod. I've never used it in real life, where it's quite a long rod, but it's also got a reel. And I feel like they're just a bit unwieldy, and there is a bit of bugginess, apparently, in the game with the Bolognese rods. They're still totally usable. I just found them awkward. So what I might do is actually put points into my telescopic rod and maybe upgrade that relatively soon to get a more powerful version, so I can go after the bigger fish. And then eventually what I'm looking to do is go match rod, which I know inside out. That's what I use lots of, which is a good all-round rod. And this one is the ability to use a float with a fixed line. So you get fishing technique plus 5%, technique plus 10%, technique fishing using a rig with a fixed line. Okay, they've just changed the wording, but it's 15%. So what we get here, casting distance and control of the fish, which is good because you've only got a certain amount to play with. And the reel is casting accuracy and distance. If I'm concentrating on using a telescopic rod for the time being, meaning I'm not going to be using a reel, then this is kind of pointless. I'm going to just bosh some points in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the fixed line. Is the game just lagging? Game, hello? Hello, game? It's like, has my internet disconnected? Or have I disconnected with the server? Is it just really lagging? Let's close it down and we'll start again. Okay, we're back in. That was the server this time. This wasn't shitty Northern Irish internet, okay? No big deal. It does happen occasionally. You logged back in at the sort of starting area of whatever lake you're on. Just let you know, if you don't know now already, we've now got 109 members of the Loki Doki channel. If you want to join it, you're more than welcome. Even if you're experienced or you're new, scroll down here, join the Loki Doki channel. We have matches. We had a great match earlier for cruising carp and some spinning and stuff like this. Right, so we've sold all our fish, didn't we? Right. So there's a few things we're going to do. We're going to do a little bit of crafting as well. So, but first things first, we've talked about rods and stuff. And what we're going to level... Oh, we didn't do our points, did we? That's it. So I've got 8 points. Here's a little tip for you. With the harvesting baits, I find it good just to put 1 point into harvesting worms. Because you only get level up on the skill when you catch a worm. So just putting a point in there just gives you a better chance of catching a worm, which is more bait, plus it levels up quicker. So we put that there. These are shared, so that's good. So I'm just going to put a point in it. Remember, you do have 1 free reset. So what you could do, if you plan to fish with match fishing rods, you could go, okay, well, I'm going to put, and I will do. Let's just do it, boys. Let's just do it. There we go. Boom, 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 boom. Look at that. Points. You know, you could say, well, I'm going to fish with match rods, but that doesn't unlock until 60%, and we're not even halfway there, and it slows down. So what I'll do is I'll wait until I've unlocked this, then I'll maybe do my free reset and take those points off and put them in there and all that sort of good stuff. So, yeah, there we go. 7 points, telescopic rod. Probably should have put up a couple in fixed line, but it doesn't matter. Like, as you saw with that cruising carp, you don't need... This just gives you a little help. You can still catch massive fish on various different methods. So we spent our points... Now we're going to spend our money. Segue. Let's check out that segue. Is what I meant, what I'm doing. Right. So as I said, we want to go after a feeder rod. If you did really want to go into spinning, this little first rod is great. Does the job perfectly on all the sort of lower level lakes. This lake here, the winding rivulet, which we go to next, really good for spinning on that. You don't need to go crazy with it. But we're going to go feeder rods, and we are going to go for the cheapest one, the Sorrento, but we are going to go for the longest version. So they're all the same, but this is longer. It means you can cast better, you can cast further, you get a bit more control over your fish as well. So I think it's worth the extra 4 silver or whatever it is to get it. So we're going to pick it up, boys. We now own a Sorrento FD130, but we need a reel to go with it. This is an area that's, I think for new players, it's a bit more confusing because they all look quite similar, don't they? Like different colours and shit, but they all look quite similar. But as you can see, the range of prices. Now, the stuff you want to look at, the main stuff you want to look at is this here, this max drag, 3 kilos. This gives you an idea of what sort of how heavy duty this reel is, meaning that the way you set your rigs up, you've got a rod, and then you've got your reel, then you've got your line, and you don't want the rod to be the first to break, or you don't want your reel to be the first to break. You want your line. If anything's going to break, you want your line. So if we're using max drag of 3 kilos on this reel, we want our line to be slightly smaller than that. So 5 pound, 6 pound line, just under 3 kilos, or 3 kilos, anything around about and stuff like that. So my operation is timed out. Okay, I think that was from when I was previously clicking it. Excellent stuff. So this first one is 3 kilos, and it's a perfectly good. You can definitely get that. It's really cheap. If you want to get straight into feeder fishing, go for it. This will do you well. But the trouble is, what I want to do is future-proof. I'll tackle a little bit. When we get maybe into a couple of the other bigger lakes, the fish, especially on the grass carp on Old Berg, you're going to struggle. You might have to chase fish around the lake with this sort of thing. So what I've been saving for is a Lacerti, smooth black Lacerti. And it's a 5.5 max drag, so similar to the rod, right? But that will give us a load more to play with. We can put some 10-pound line on there and be really nice and safe. So, and this will last us ages. So that's my thought process. Like I said, if you just want to get straight into feeder fishing, go for the cheaper one, but know that you'll have to upgrade a lot sooner. So, we have a rod. We have a reel. Now we want some line. Now, we're looking for sort of 10-pound line, because annoyingly everything is, it's what it's like the stupid, we'll use pounds and kilos because the world can't decide what we're going to do. What we're going to look at here is obviously the load capacity. You've got it here as shown here. So 1.7 16 kilo line, and so it's there, isn't it? So that's what we're looking for. I work in pounds, so it hurts my brain a little bit like this. Unfortunately, stuff is out of stock. We'll talk about that in a minute. But 16 is a little bit high. That's 7.5 kilo. I mean, that is the strongest part of our tackle, meaning the rod and the reel are more likely to break first. Whereas the other things are out of stock. This is a bit light. So, but we can go into one of the other manufacturers. We can still go for the relatively cheap line. But I feel like we can, make a little bit of step up. The other thing is the length of the line that you're buying. These are spools of 100-metre line, which is fine general fishing. But if you catch a big fish on Old Berg and it's just taking line and you're having to chase it around the lake, it does help to have a spool of 350 metres. I'm not sure if I can afford that. What else do I need? I need a weight. I need a little bell thing, which I'll show you in a minute. We'll gamble. 34 silver. We're going to go for it, boys. We're going for 350 metres of green Indiana. It's 5 kilos, so that's perfect. Everything's pretty much even across the board. And we have it. We're down to 22 gold. This is what we need to save up, boys. Now, we don't need a float. We don't need a lure. We need a couple of hooks. I do own it. The more expensive the hook, the sharper they are, basically. The more likely they are to hook onto a fish when you strike or keep a fish on, all that good stuff. You don't need to go crazy with it, though, and we're a bit skint. So I'm not going to go mad with it. In fact, I do own a couple of hooks already, so I might just leave that for a minute. We'll see what the others. Now we got our bottom fish. We can't fish with a feeder yet because we have to unlock that as we feed a fish. So what we're looking at is these. We don't need that because that comes with a kit and it's float fishing. We don't need anything more than just a cheapy one, really. A weight is a weight. We're fishing in lakes. We don't need a weird shaped thing that will stop the drag, but I don't think it's massively important. We didn't buy the cheapest rod and reel. So we probably could go with a little bit of a heavier weight. It helps hook the fish and all that sort of stuff. We don't need to go too crazy with it. If you're fishing on a river, you might want to up the size a bit just to make sure it doesn't, move away. But we'll have a pear sinker, please. You don't need a leader. That's all fine. We don't need a feeder because we can't afford that yet. We got 20, so that's cool. We'll get a couple of decent hooks then. We'll go up in it. What about a happy hook? With all things, just experiment and stuff. Oh, hang on. We need a bite. Okay, it's only 2. So you need one of these. You don't have to use one of these on your feeder fish when you're feeder fishing, but this means you don't have to look at it. You don't have to wait for the rod to bend and watch it. You can just put this on the end and we'll all be good. We've got proper bite alarms. These are just visual, so they're little bright lights, and all these 3 make a sound. So we're just going to have this thing. We need 1 at the moment. And so let's go. I like these hooks. I use these quite regularly. I never buy the first cheapest one. I don't know, it's just instinct. I don't want the cheapest. I'll have the next one up, please. So this hook size thing, now this is a bit of a decent kit, right? It can take, it's 5 kilo. We can be looking for fish maybe 15, 20 pounds if we're careful. Potentially, easily 10 pounds. So we can go a little bit bigger hook size, maybe put on some big fat worms or something. So we've got a little bit of money. It's always good to have a spare hook so you don't have to keep running back to the tackle shop and stuff. So we're going to go with a couple of size 8s. I think that'll do us. I like a size 8 hook. I think that's a nice, well-rounded hook. We'll go for 3 size 8s because that'll do us for a while as well then. Right, have I forgotten something? I probably have. Oh, yeah, I wanted to talk to you about the tackle store and the grocery store and anything where you can buy stuff. So here, we can buy worms, which we don't need to because we've got a spade. We can buy red worms, but they cost gold currency. And you're probably thinking, this is pay to win. Bollocks, pay to win, innit? The thing is, only on this lake is it gold currency. When you move up to the next lake, there'll be more unlocked. There'll be much more available for silver currency. And as you can see here, things here, you can't even buy these bark beetle larvae. So, but in other lakes, as you move up and stuff, you will find different stuff in stock. Stock also changes. They do restock the shops. So these diced potatoes might go out of stock, and then next week they'll be in stock again and all that sort of good stuff. What do we want to buy a bait? Like, just treat ourselves. Like, most of the standard baits will work, right? We got the bread, we got the worms, really cheap stuff. So we can use that, or we could treat ourselves to I don't know why diced potatoes is so expensive. It's a spud. Why is that twice the price of maggots? Okay, we'll go with it. I'm going to treat myself. You get 30 bits of potato. So, next up. Oh, I know what I did want to save money for something. We can afford it. Next up, I'm just going to sort of show you this, is the crafting system of the Groundbait. So you get your base mix, which is basically a fine powder that you add water to, and you get big balls of stuff you can either throw out into the lake to increase the chances of the fish coming to see you, or you can put in a feeder. We don't have a feeder yet, but we can still use Groundbait. Then you've got additives and attractants and all this sort of good stuff. But we don't need that right away. We need to unlock that anyway, and I'll show you that. So you can see that what you can use is the stuff with the little white bit. If it's got orange, means you can't use it. We have to be level 18, and I have to have making Groundbait 90% for that. So this Ground Crackers is perfectly good. Still use it even though I'm level 20 plus. So we'll have a couple of these just so we can make them. And I'll also go to the grocery store and buy a bit of bread. Bread's always useful because you can eat it, but you can also craft it into smaller bits of bread. There, we have used all our money. If I've forgotten something, we're screwed, okay, officially. So hit N to go into our crafting. Actually, we'll go to our making Groundbait. So we've not done a single bit of Groundbait. We can mix a Groundbait by default and use basic stuff, which we saw. So we want to go N. We want to go... First off, we'll make a bait, which is crumb, okay, which requires bread. We've got bread. You can select one. You hit make. You basically tearing bits of bread into sort of rounded bits of bread. And this increases our harvesting bait skill because it's not a ground bait. This is actual bait we're making here. We'll do one more. You can actually fail making small bread bits from a loaf. You have to be pretty stupid to fail at making small bits of bread from a big bit of bread. Right, let's go to Groundbait. So you've got all these different mixes that attract different fish and all this sort of stuff. It doesn't mean only carp will come, but it increases the chances. But at the moment, we can't, all this stuff that is going to require 2 additives and attractants, we haven't unlocked all that stuff. So we're going to just go basic Groundbait, and we're going to chuck in our ground crackers, and we're going to make. And then depending on your skill level and a big chunk of luck, it will give you a quality. So you get 20 balls, and it gives you a quality and how long it lasts in the water. These will last indefinitely in your inventory, but this will last how long in the water. So you can chuck out a couple of balls, 13 hours, good stuff. Quality 3 out of 10, I'll take that for me first ball. I'll take it. So we'll make a couple, hopefully we don't fail, because, you know, I'm skint, right? 1 out of 10. But still useful, still better than nothing, right? I'll just make himself feel better. Right, so I am going to do a complete sort of separate guide on the Mosquito Lake and good spots and stuff. But let's get fishing, and I'll show you the basics of feeder fishing and talk about some other little bits as well. So I'm going to show you my favourite spot. And there's multiple reasons why this is my favourite spot. But we'll get there first, and I'll point them out, because that'll be useful. Right. So we're going past the old tent. Good little perch spot down by this little log here. But we're not doing perch, boys. I think we're looking for some crusions, maybe some small common carp just for funsies. And you're like, with all my guides, I'm going to say whatever people suggest to you, whatever baits they suggest, or depths you should float fish out, or areas you should fish in. Give it a try, but also explore yourself. Walk around the lake like you would if you were visiting a real lake for the first time and find a spot. So this is dolphin log. The reason why it's called dolphin log, I made this up myself, is because that log looks like a dolphin. I think you can all agree. Don't look at the back end of it. That looks a bit weird. But the front end is definitely a dolphin. So the reason why this is my favourite spot on this lake is, for float fishing, you can go over here, is a good spot, right under the dolphin's nose. at the skill. Did you see the skill? Wasn't even looking. It's a no-look cast, right? You can go right under the dolphin's nose there, or you can go in between these two lily pads. So if that area's not biting, you could try just out here and try there at different depths. It's not too deep, this bit. It's only up to like 1 metre. And then if you've got a third choice where you can go right in here. But don't be afraid of getting caught and stuff, getting snagged, because it's easy to get out of it. And you can just, remember, always reposition your float if you're not happy with it, and you just float right in there. Get some lovely bites, okay? We'll ignore this for the time being. This is where I get no bites at all, isn't it? Right, so we've got our stuff. Let's get our kit together. What, have I forgotten anything? Okay, so reel, a Lacerti. That is a stunning piece of kit for a low-level guy like me. Fishing line, 350 metres of the green stuff. Bite indicator, a cheap bell. That's all. A little jingle bell. That's all I could afford. Our little weights here. We're not using a leader. We can't anyway because we don't have that skill. We've got our size 6. We'll go for a size 8. You know, let's be bold. Let's be beautiful. And then we've got bait. These are the baits I own. We've got the diced potatoes that I bought. We've got the worms. When your worm, I'll show you that in a minute, the sort of digging for worms, you will occasionally find yourself a red worm, and I've been saving them up. I've got 11 red worm to use specifically when we go feeder fishing, just because, you know, might catch a fish on it. They're good, red worms. So here it is. So if this is your first time actually casting, you might want to do a little bit of practice. Basically, it's much like casting the other rods. You just hold it down, keep holding it if you want the super power one, and then let go. And I've cast it out officially. But my favourite little spot here, also little tip, each reel has a default reeling in speed, and its default is pretty slow, so you can hold R and you get the retrieval speed, and you whack it up to 50, because this only takes into account when you've not got a fish on. Means you just saves a bit of time, reel in nice and quick. You can hold shift to reel in even quicker, so you can get a speedy retrieval. So my favourite spot here to feeder fish is just on this little bit of weed here, either just in front, just behind, even in the middle. You know, occasionally you'll get snagged, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. You could go to the lily pads just here, or you could even go a bit longer to that group of grass there. So, but we're just going to go Luzzy. Okay. Never. If it's a crap cast, don't be ashamed of yourself. Just go again. All right. Look at that. I couldn't. So the way you place your rod, you don't want it straight on because it's harder to see bites. Okay. So just put it to the side, almost like 90-degree angle is perfect with these rods. Put it down using the 0 key, and you'll notice there's some slack line here, which we don't want. You'll also notice on the enemy rod is the little bell. So you look down at your rod, and you just hold the Y key to reel in a bit until all the slack line's gone. You'll hear the bell make a little tinkle. Okay, maybe the weight's not heavy enough to tinkle. Hang on. The good thing about feeder fishing is that the fish hook themselves, because they'll take the bait, go to swim off, and the weight will hook them. Okay. Deadbeat Berters, he couldn't stay away. So many people are addicted to this game, guys, you wouldn't believe. Yeah, so just get the line, depending on the weight you're using, just get the line as tight as you can. You don't want too much slack like this. So we'll just put it... There you go. There's the tinkle we wanted. Little tinkle. Right, I didn't even see where that landed. That's probably a terrible cast. But that's what you want. Nice tight line, and then as soon as the fish starts going, and like I said, you don't need to strike when you pick it up. You just need to lift it up, and your fish should be on. You just pick it up with the E. So this is why I said go with float fishing and feeder fishing first, because we can ignore that now, and we can just do a bit of float fishing. And we've got a fish on, boys. We've got a fish on. And it's going to be a Chinese sleeper of about 200 grams. Oh, look at 205. It's like I know what I'm doing or something, isn't it? We got a tinkle, lads. We got a tinkle. Quick, chuck that back out. Santa's coming, boys. A little bit of bend in the rod there. Like I said, don't need to strike. This is not the biggest fish in the world. Because we've got, it's not a heavy-duty feeder rod, but it's a decent size, meaning that these little fish we can bring in quite quickly. Like that's like a half kilo crucian carp, which is actually decent fish, but because we got nice heavy duty tackle, we don't have to. We're just like, yeah, bring it on, mate. You know, you can't fight this. Gee, look at the accuracy of that cast. Because I've got no points in feeder fishing, your accuracy is a bit like a drunk person. That'll do, in between the two spots there. After we can try that. Like I said, always experiment. You might want to just kind of try casting out into the middle somewhere. You don't have, there's no sort of depth like there is on the floats to deal with or anything. So then we can go back to our fishing. Let's try, what were we on? Oh, we were on worm, weren't we? And so the last thing I'm going to show you this episode is quite, I can't even remember. No, I don't think I showed you it before. So if you hit, after you've bought your shovel, if you hit your U key, right, or hold it down, all the stuff in your backpack is here. So that's gone because it's out there. But you can drag and drop stuff to the top. So I dragged my shovel to 3. So if I hit 3, bring the old shovel out. And then just left click to cut your feet open, apparently. Boom! Straight in with the worm, boys. This does take a chunk of your energy. So if you're going to go proper harvesting, worm fishing, you want to take some food with you to bring up your energy constantly, because it will take a chunk. You can only maybe dig 8 or 9 times with full energy, that top bar, before you're knackered. There you go. So as you can see, the top bar is dropping down now. You won't, like I said, this is the reason why you put a point in, because you will fail a lot. So I'm expecting somebody to just put loads of swear words in the chat. I am recording this at 4 in the morning, so I don't think there's that many people on. Right. So as you can see, my food's a bit low. And the good thing about bread is that you can make your bait with it, but you can also scoff a bit for energy. Watch the episode and join the fun. There you go. I didn't tell him to say that. So the last thing we're going to talk about is ground bait. So it's the same deal here. You don't need to drag it up there, because once you've thrown 20 pieces out, it's gone. So you just click it once, let go of the button, and behold, the size of my fucking ball, mate. I know you're jealous, lads. So you want to chuck them out like you do as if you're casting, and you just have to do a bit of practice. I'm getting a bite, lads. It's fair to say I'm getting a bite. I think I might even just... Yeah, the fish is swimming around with it. Hang on. There we go. What have we got here? Little crucian. Okay. So, work out what you want to cast. We're fishing in this little inlet here. So, hold you, click that, go there. I'm going to say 45%. I went 50. Oh, I'll take it. I think 45% was right. Look at that. And you just want to chuck out 3 or 4 balls is perfectly fine. And then we'll go full beans to see if we can get it out. You can't throw it massively far. Oh, that's too... I'm too strong, if anything, lads. There we go. That was spot on, that. And there we go. And now we've got 12 hours of using this will become useful for. There we go. That's a bite. That went straight down. The trouble is when you're... Oh... Okay, so this is the other type of bite you'll get on the other rod, is that I didn't get a bell because the fish has picked it up and swam towards the line, so it's just gone slack line, but you still want to pick it up. Grab it in that slack as quick as possible. That fish is swimming all over the place. Right, he's only a little one as well. He's going for it, isn't he? Little gibble carp. And one other tip, which is actually really useful because it's really annoying. When you're feeder fishing... If you haven't got a bite for like 10 minutes, just reel in your rod and cast again. Not because there might not be any fish there, because what can happen is there's a certain particular annoying species called a ruff. And it's a tiny fish. My biggest is 80 grams. But they will occasionally eat your bait, and they're so little and so weak that they can't pull the rod or anything like that. You might get one little tinkle on the bell or none at all. But you're not going to catch any other fish because you've got sitting there with a 20-gram ruff on. So just in case you're sitting there with a tiny little fish on, you might just want to check every 10 minutes if you haven't got a bite. Let's go a little bit deeper. Right, we're going to catch one more fish before we finish up, right? Yeah, so when your float rod is on the floor... Oh, there's a little tinkle. See, this is a good spot for feeder fishing, this, boys. We haven't caught anything big, but at this level, just catching fish is good, especially when you're just getting used to it. Right. Little tench. Hello, Mr. Slimy Tench. How are you doing? My favourite species. We're going to just let's luzz one out over there. I was aiming for there. That's amazing. Like I said, never go, oh, that'll do when you cast. If you're not happy with it, get it back in. That's my longest ever cast. That'll do. Right, for the purposes of this. Yeah, so always check for rough. If you've got any other questions about what we've covered in this episode, please leave them in the comments. Also, if you've got any tips, I've been playing this for a while, but I know there's tons of people with much more experience than me. So if you've got your own tips on what we've covered today, please leave it in the comments below, or any little tips and tricks and all that sort of good stuff. So my main aim now... Oh, look at that bite quick. I knew that was a good cast. I'm catching the world's smallest carp, though, aren't I? These red worms are good, but with the thing with red worms is that pretty much every fish likes them. It's worms and red worms, most fish are quite happy to have them. That's a better gibble, though, that one. There you go. It's a pound, isn't it? I've just hit level 10! Woohoo! We've leveled up bottom fishing to almost 1%. What do we unlock first in bottom fishing? Got all those. The paternoster rig, so that allows us, when we get 25%, that allows us to use a feeder, which is good, because we can put ground bait in the actual... Oh, my word. Yeah, look at that. That is a great cast, because that's near that log there. Not where I meant it to go, but you'll take it. So, so any tips you've got, any questions you've got, make sure you join our chats. Hit the cog down there, Loki Doki. Also, we've got a channel on our Discord for showing off your fish and chatting about the fishing. That's the link in the description below also. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to be doing, as well as this newbie guide that we'll be finishing up probably next episode. I'm going to be doing lake guides and specific types of guides for various types of fishing and all that sort of good stuff. I can't resist not trying to catch this fish. So Z to zoom in, remember. But yeah, so any questions at all? I'm absolutely loving this game. And it's also made me want to go fishing again. But the carp fishing in Northern Ireland is absolutely crap. But we'll see what we do. Sub to the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Just bite it. Come on. Just go under, float, yeah? Just go under. Huh? Oh, I've just forgotten, as I'm reading in this massive whopper, one thing I forgot to talk about that's probably quite important is this bar. You probably discovered it. If you've got this far, you probably already know what this is now. This is a decent little fish, this, boys. It's a decent crucian, that. There we go. Look at that. I should call you Frank. That was my excellent cast over near the tree. So this bottom bar, I'm doing it again, look. Oh, I scare myself sometimes. This little bottom bar, I'll use it on my float rod because it's easier to sort of pay attention to, is your tension bar. So this little fish here is pulling the line, this little crucian, and that's the tension. So when it's in the green, when the bar is small, that means you've got a bit of tension on the line. That's all good. Everything's fine. Everything is awesome, right? When it goes past these little lines, it will go into the orange. Just tighten my line up there. Those two first lines, it goes into the orange, which is still okay. Yeah, it goes yellow and green and red. When it gets to the outside, the further it gets near the outside, the scarier it is. Okay. If it gets to all the way to the red, then you are at risk of snapping your line, right? This could be another decent little fish here. So as you can see, if I'm pulling it here, yellow, oh, You've got to be very careful. You can alter your drag. You don't want the drag too much because then the fish will just pull line out, right? You want to alter the drag so when you're sort of fighting the fish, it sort of stays in the yellow area, but or green is perfect. But also what you want to do is make sure you've always got tension on the line. You don't want it slack. Anytime it's like this is bad because that means the fish could come off. Also, you never want to point your rod tip to the fish because the rod itself is your big shock absorber. And so when the fish decides to go for it a bit, it acts as a big sort of spongy. If you're pointing right at it, everything's on the line and you're in danger of losing the fish. Oh, look. I actually look like I've just had 2 kilo crusions back to back. I'm just going to end it there like a fucking fishing genius. Bye-bye.